Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Contexts in discourse analysis. In discourse analysis, context is a crucial concept that encompasses the various situational, social, and cultural factors influencing how language is used and interpreted. Context shapes the meaning of texts and discourse, determining how messages are constructed, conveyed, and understood. Here are key aspects of contexts in discourse analysis, enriched with examples. Situational context. The immediate environment in which a text or discourse occurs. This includes the physical setting, the participants, their roles and relationships, and the purpose of the interaction. Example: a courtroom setting where a judge addresses the jury differs significantly from a casual conversation between friends. The formality, legal jargon, and authoritative tone of the judge's speech are shaped by the courtroom's situational context. Social context. The social context refers to the societal norms, values, and conventions that influence how discourse is produced and interpreted. It includes the social identities of the participants, such as their gender, age, ethnicity, and social status. Example: in many cultures, addressing elders with respectful titles or formal language is a norm. A young person might use Mr. or Mrs. when speaking to an older person, reflecting the social context of age and respect. Cultural context. The broader cultural background that shapes the discourse, including shared knowledge, beliefs, customs, and traditions. Cultural context influences the themes, references, and idioms used in discourse. Example: an American talking about Thanksgiving assumes shared cultural knowledge about the holiday's significance, traditions, and practices. This context is specific to American culture and may not be understood in the same way elsewhere. Historical context. The historical period in which a discourse occurs can shape its content and meaning. This includes past events, prevailing ideologies, and historical relationships between participants. Example: political speeches delivered during the Cold War era often contain references to communism and democracy that reflect the historical context of geopolitical tension between the US and the Soviet Union. Institutional context. The specific organizational or institutional setting where discourse takes place. This context includes the norms, rules, and power dynamics of institutions like schools, workplaces, or governments. Example: in an educational institution, a teacher's discourse with students is influenced by institutional norms such as curricula, classroom etiquette, and educational objectives. The teacher's role and authority shape how they communicate and how students respond. Intertextual context. The relationship between the current text or discourse and other texts. Intertextuality involves references, quotations, or allusions to other texts, creating a network of meanings. Example: a news article about climate change might reference scientific reports, previous news stories, and political statements. These intertextual links provide a richer context for understanding the article's arguments and implications. Interactional context. The dynamics of the interaction itself, including the turn-taking, speech acts, and conversational strategies used by participants. This context focuses on how discourse unfolds in real time. Example: in a customer service interaction, the representative might use polite and helpful language strategies to address a complaint. The interactional context involves managing the customer's frustration and providing solutions. Ideological context. The underlying beliefs, values, and ideologies that shape and are shaped by discourse. This context examines how power, dominance, and resistance are constructed and maintained through language. Example: advertisements often reflect and perpetuate consumerist ideologies by promoting material success and consumption as desirable goals. The ideological context of capitalism shapes the language and imagery used in advertising. Pragmatic context. The intended and inferred meanings behind utterances, considering the speaker's intentions and the listener's interpretations. Pragmatics deals with how context affects meaning beyond the literal words used. Example: The phrase, "Can you open the window?" is a literal question about ability but often understood pragmatically as a polite request. The context of the request, e.g., a hot room, helps infer the speaker's intention. Conclusion. In discourse analysis, context is multidimensional and encompasses various factors that influence how discourse is produced, conveyed, and interpreted. Understanding context involves considering the situational, social, cultural, historical, institutional, intertextual, interactional, ideological, and pragmatic elements that shape communication. By analyzing these contexts, researchers can gain deeper insights into the meanings, functions, and impacts of discourse in different settings. Frequently asked questions. What is context in discourse analysis? In discourse analysis, context refers to the various situational, social, and cultural factors that influence how language is used and interpreted. Context shapes the meaning of texts and discourse, determining how messages are constructed, conveyed, and understood. What is situational context in discourse analysis? Situational context involves the immediate environment where a text or discourse occurs. This includes the physical setting, participants, their roles, relationships, and the interaction's purpose. For example, the formal and authoritative language used by a judge in a courtroom is shaped by the situational context of the legal setting. How does social context affect discourse? Social context refers to societal norms, values, and conventions influencing discourse production and interpretation. It includes social identities such as gender, age, ethnicity, and social status. For instance, using respectful titles when addressing elders reflects social norms of respect and age hierarchy. What role does cultural context play in discourse analysis? Cultural context encompasses the broader cultural background, including shared knowledge, beliefs, customs, and traditions. This context influences themes, references, and idioms used in discourse. For example, discussing Thanksgiving in the U.S. assumes shared cultural knowledge about the holiday's significance. How does historical context influence discourse? Historical context includes past events, prevailing ideologies, and historical relationships that shape discourse content and meaning. For instance, Cold War-era political speeches often referenced communism and democracy, reflecting the historical context of geopolitical tensions. What is institutional context in discourse analysis? Institutional context refers to the specific organizational or institutional setting where discourse occurs, including norms, rules, and power dynamics. In educational settings, a teacher's discourse is influenced by curricula, classroom etiquette, and educational objectives. What is intertextual context? Intertextual context involves the relationship between the current text and other texts, including references, quotations, or allusions. This creates a network of meanings. For example, a news article on climate change might reference scientific reports and previous news stories, enriching its context. How does interactional context shape discourse? Interactional context focuses on the dynamics of the interaction, including turn-taking, speech acts, and conversational strategies. For instance, a customer service representative's polite language in addressing a complaint is shaped by the need to manage the customer's frustration and provide solutions. What is ideological context? Ideological context examines the underlying beliefs, values, and ideologies that shape and are shaped by discourse. Advertisements, for example, often reflect consumerist ideologies, promoting material success and consumption as desirable goals. How does pragmatic context affect meaning in discourse? Pragmatic context deals with the intended and inferred meanings behind utterances, considering the speaker's intentions and the listener's interpretations. For example, "Can you open the window?" is often understood pragmatically as a polite request, with context helping infer the speaker's intention. Why is understanding context important in discourse analysis? Understanding context is crucial for analyzing how discourse is produced, conveyed, and interpreted. It helps researchers uncover deeper meanings, functions, and impacts of language use in different settings, providing insights into social interactions and power dynamics. Can you provide an example of analyzing context in discourse analysis? Analyzing a company's mission statement involves considering its situational context, organizational setting, social context, corporate culture and values, and ideological context, emphasis on innovation and teamwork. This analysis reveals how the mission statement shapes and reflects the company's identity and goals.